She was kicked out of the store because she looked unsuitable. But what they didn't realize was that she would return in a very different status, ready to see how the real mistress is dealt with. Watch to the end to find out the whole truth. Don't forget to subscribe and write in the comments how you would act in her shoes. Monica Williams stared out the large glass window of her penthouse, taking in the vast expanse of the city beneath her. The hustle and bustle of daily life in downtown Manhattan unfolded as if choreographed, with yellow cabs racing by, people rushing between meetings, and tourists stopping to take photos of the iconic skyline. Normally, she would find the scene calming, a reminder of how far she had come. But today, a lingering sense of unease hung over her. As the CEO and owner of one of the most prestigious chains of luxury beauty salons across the country, Monica was no stranger to success. Her name had become synonymous with elegance and opulence, her salons catering to the crème de la crème of society, celebrities, politicians, high-profile executives. What made her different from other luxury brands was her belief that everyone, regardless of background, should feel welcomed in her spaces. She had built her empire on the foundation of inclusivity, yet today, her faith in her own vision had been shaken. A series of troubling rumors had reached her over the past few weeks. One of her flagship salons, located in the upscale Soho district, had reportedly been the subject of complaints from clients and even a few employees. There were whispers of a toxic atmosphere, of staff being overly selective with who they chose to serve, treating clients with disdain if they didn't fit a particular mold. Monica had brushed off the first few rumors, attributing them to the occasional difficult client or misunderstanding, but the reports had become more frequent and more damning. The worst part, though no one had explicitly mentioned race, she knew the underlying issue was discrimination. It always was. Monica, a successful black woman in a predominantly white industry, knew better than anyone how easily such prejudices could fester, even in spaces that were supposed to be her sanctuary. She had fought tooth and nail to establish her place in the beauty world, defying expectations and breaking through barriers at every turn. But the idea that racism could exist within her own business, in a place she had built to empower others, infuriated her. Her thoughts drifted back to her early days in the industry. Growing up in a middle-class black family in Harlem, Monica had always known that her journey would not be easy. As a child, she had experienced discrimination firsthand. The casual racism of teachers who doubted her potential. The sneers from classmates who ridiculed her dreams of becoming a businesswoman. Even as an adult, when she had built her first salon from the ground up, she had faced skepticism from landlords who didn't think a black woman could afford the rent in their high-end buildings. But she had persevered. She had pushed past the closed doors, the assumptions, the double standards, until she stood at the top of her industry. And now, to think that all her hard work was being tarnished by employees who didn't share her values, it was unacceptable. Monica tore her gaze away from the window, the decision already made in her mind. She needed to see it for herself. Rumors alone were not enough to take action. She had to experience what her clients were going through. If the reports were true, then she would deal with it swiftly and decisively. But she needed proof. She glanced at her reflection in the mirror across the room. Her poised, polished exterior, the tailored designer suit, the immaculate hairstyle, didn't match the simmering frustration beneath the surface. Today, she would leave all that behind. Today, she wouldn't be Monica Williams, CEO of a multi-million-dollar luxury brand. Today, she would be just another customer. It wasn't the first time Monica had gone undercover in one of her own salons. When she had first launched her business, she had often visited her locations in disguise to gauge the quality of service firsthand. But that had been years ago, back when her empire was still in its infancy. Things had changed since then. Her salons had expanded from New York to Los Angeles, Chicago, Miami, and beyond, becoming the go-to destination for those seeking top-tier beauty treatments. She no longer needed to monitor her staff so closely, or so she thought. But this time, the stakes felt higher. This wasn't just about poor customer service or unprofessional behavior. This was about something far more personal. If the whispers about discrimination were true, it wasn't just a violation of company policy. It was a violation of her values, of everything she stood for. Later that evening, Monica stood in front of her wardrobe, contemplating her disguise. She wanted to blend in, to experience the treatment that everyday clients received, especially those who didn't fit the stereotypical image of a wealthy salon goer. After a few moments, she selected a pair of simple jeans, a plain black hoodie, and comfortable sneakers. She left her usual jewelry behind, including the sparkling diamond bracelet she wore to most corporate meetings. Today, she needed to look like someone who, in the eyes of a judgmental staff member, might not be able to afford the salon's high-end services. As she pulled her hair into a low ponytail and adjusted the hood over her head, she felt a familiar pang in her chest, a reminder of all the times she had been judged based on her appearance. Memories flooded back. The times she had been followed in department stores, the dismissive looks from sales associates when she had been building her brand, the assumption that she didn't belong in certain spaces because of the color of her skin. She was reminded that no amount of success could completely shield her from racism. No matter how much she had achieved, she still had to confront the reality that, to some people, she would always be less than. With a deep breath, Monica grabbed her keys and left her penthouse. This wasn't just about catching a few bad employees. This was about confronting the deeply ingrained prejudice that had haunted her throughout her life. Prejudice that, shockingly, had found its way into her own house. The Soho salon was one of her most luxurious locations, nestled in the heart of Manhattan's upscale shopping district. The area was lined with designer boutiques, trendy cafes, and high-end restaurants, attracting a diverse clientele ranging from tourists to socialites. The salon's reputation as a haven for the city's elite had only grown over the years, but now it seemed that reputation came with an ugly side. Monica arrived in the evening, just as the streets were bustling with the after-work crowd, but the salon was winding down for the day. The soft glow of the salon's golden lights spilled onto the street through its glass doors, and as she approached, she felt a sense of dread settle in her stomach. She stepped inside, immediately noting the luxurious interior, the sleek black and gold decor, the polished marble floors, and the carefully arranged displays of high-end beauty products. It was everything she had envisioned when she first designed the space, but today it felt cold, unwelcoming. The reception area was quiet, save for the low murmur of a few employees chatting behind the front desk. A security guard stood near the entrance, his eyes scanning the room with casual disinterest. Monica walked over to a display of skincare products, pretending to browse while she observed the atmosphere. It didn't take long for her to notice the shift in energy. Despite standing within plain view, no one acknowledged her presence. The two receptionists continued their conversation, ignoring her entirely. The security guard barely glanced in her direction. It was as if she were invisible, an unwelcome ghost in a space meant for the wealthy and privileged. A few minutes passed, and still, no one approached her. Monica couldn't help but feel the familiar sting of invisibility. a sensation she had experienced far too many times in her life. It was the same feeling she had as a young woman shopping in high-end stores, only to be overlooked or outright dismissed by sales associates who assumed she couldn't afford the merchandise. Her gaze drifted to the other clients in the salon. A well-dressed woman in her mid-30s was being fawned over by a stylist, who offered her a glass of champagne while discussing treatment options. Another client, a man in a tailored suit, was chatting with a receptionist, who smiled warmly and offered him a selection of premium skincare products. The contrast was stark, and Monica's frustration grew with every passing second. This wasn't just about poor service. This was deliberate exclusion. She had designed her salons to be a place where everyone, regardless of their background, could feel pampered and appreciated. But here, in one of her own locations, she was being treated as if she didn't belong. Determined to push the situation further, Monica made her way to the back of the salon, where the more exclusive services were offered. She passed by the sleek private rooms reserved for VIP clients and approached a display of high-end hair care products. As she picked up a bottle, pretending to examine the label, she saw movement out of the corner of her eye. The salon manager, a tall, impeccably dressed white woman named Rachel, emerged from the staff area. Her sharp eyes scanned the room, her posture exuding authority. Monica had seen Rachel's resume. She had years of experience in the beauty industry, and on paper she was an ideal fit for the position. But as Rachel's gaze fell on Monica, her expression shifted, and Monica knew exactly what was coming. Rachel approached with slow, measured steps, her heels clicking against the marble floor. When she reached Monica, she didn't bother with a warm greeting or a smile. Instead, her eyes flicked over Monica's jeans and hoodie, her lips curling into a subtle sneer. "Can I help you?" Rachel's tone was cold, dripping with condescension. Monica smiled politely, still holding the hair product. "I'm just looking. I've been thinking about trying out some new treatments here." Rachel barely glanced at the bottle in Monica's hand. Her attention remained fixed on Monica's appearance, and the disdain in her expression was impossible to ignore. "This is one of our more exclusive salons," Rachel said, her voice low and patronizing. "We cater to a very specific clientele. Are you sure this is the right place for you?" The implication was clear. Monica didn't fit the image of someone who could afford their services. Monica's grip tightened around the bottle, but she kept her voice steady. "I'm aware of where I am." Rachel raised an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed. "Well, these products are quite expensive," she said, her tone almost mocking. "Perhaps you'd like to visit one of our other locations. We have more affordable options elsewhere." Monica stared at her for a long moment, the weight of the insult hanging in the air between them. It wasn't the first time she had been judged based on her appearance, but this time it wasn't just personal. This was her business, her brand, and the fact that this level of prejudice was allowed to exist within it was infuriating. Still, she knew better than to lash out in the moment. This wasn't the time or place to reveal her identity. She had come here for proof, and now she had it. With deliberate care, Monica set the bottle back on the shelf and straightened up. "Thank you for your time," she said quietly, meeting Rachel's gaze one last time. Rachel didn't bother responding. She simply turned and walked away, her heels clicking as she disappeared back into the staff area. Monica stood there for a moment longer, letting the frustration wash over her. She had seen enough. It was time to take action. As Monica walked out of the salon and into the cool evening air, she felt a surge of determination rising within her. This wasn't just about firing a few bad employees. This was about restoring the integrity of her brand and ensuring that the values she had built her business on were upheld. She pulled out her phone and quickly dialed the number of her assistant. "Lauren, I need you to set up a meeting with our legal team first thing tomorrow morning," Monica said, her voice calm but firm. "And make sure our PR department is ready. We're about to make some big changes." Lauren didn't ask any questions. She knew Monica well enough to understand that when she was in this mood, something serious was about to happen. As Monica ended the call and put her phone back in her pocket, she took one last look at the salon behind her. Tomorrow, everything would be different. Monica Williams had faced many challenges in her life, but few left her feeling as unsettled as her experience in the Soho salon the day before. Now, sitting in her office at her headquarters, the gravity of the situation weighed heavily on her mind. The fact that she had personally experienced the same type of prejudice she had spent her career fighting, and in her own establishment, only intensified her resolve to address the problem head-on. She glanced at the clock. It was almost time. In less than an hour, she would be returning to the same salon. But this time, there would be no disguise, no anonymity. Today, she would walk in as Monica Williams, the CEO and owner of one of the most successful luxury salon chains in the country. Today, she would reveal her true identity to those who had looked down on her just 24 hours earlier. Monica had spent the previous night preparing, both mentally and logistically. After speaking with her legal team and senior managers, she had laid out a plan. The upcoming confrontation would not be about personal vengeance. It would be a strategic and professional correction of the toxic culture that had been allowed to fester in her own business. She wanted to send a message, not just to the Soho staff, but to the entire company. This kind of behavior would not be tolerated, period. But before that, there was still the matter of facing Rachel, the arrogant manager who had treated her like an outsider in her own store. Monica couldn't help but feel a mix of anticipation and frustration at the thought. On the one hand, she relished the idea of watching the look on Rachel's face when she realized who Monica really was. On the other hand, it saddened her deeply that this type of racism and prejudice was still so prevalent, even within her own brand. Taking a deep breath, Monica stood up from her desk, smoothing the fabric of her impeccably tailored suit. She had chosen a navy blue outfit that exuded authority and power, paired with her favorite designer heels. Unlike the day before, she wanted there to be no doubt about who she was when she walked through those doors. "Lauren," she called out as she stepped into the hallway. "Let the driver know I'm ready. We're heading to Soho." The drive to the salon was quiet, giving Monica time to reflect on what lay ahead. She had spent years building her business from the ground up, fighting every step of the way to prove that a black woman could succeed in the world of luxury beauty. And yet, no matter how successful she became, no matter how many salons she opened or awards she won, there were always people like Rachel who would look at her and assume she didn't belong. But today wasn't just about her personal experience. It was about every customer who had been treated poorly in that salon because of the way they looked. It was about making sure that the values of inclusivity and respect were upheld in every corner of her business. As the car pulled up to the salon, Monica felt a surge of determination. She had rehearsed the conversation in her head several times, but she knew that the reality of the situation would be different. There would be no script, no perfect delivery. It would be raw, real, and necessary. The driver opened the door for her, and Monica stepped out onto the busy sidewalk of Soho. The air was crisp, and the familiar hum of the city surrounded her as she approached the glass doors of the salon. This time, she walked with purpose, her head held high. There would be no hiding who she was today. Inside, The salon was a stark contrast to the cold reception she had experienced the day before. The moment she stepped through the door, the atmosphere shifted. Employees who had ignored her yesterday now snapped to attention, their smiles wide and overly eager. The same receptionist, who had barely glanced at her the day before now, greeted her with a bright, almost frantic enthusiasm. "Good afternoon. Welcome to our salon. How can we assist you today?" the receptionist asked, her voice dripping with false sincerity. Monica didn't answer right away. She took a moment to observe the staff, noting the sudden change in their demeanor. It was clear they had been informed that someone important was visiting today, though they had no idea just how important. "I'm here to see Rachel," Monica said coolly, her gaze never leaving the receptionist's face. The receptionist's smile faltered for a split second, but she quickly recovered. "Of course, ma'am. I'll let her know you've arrived." As the receptionist hurried away, Monica walked further into the salon, her heels clicking against the polished marble floor. The same luxury decor that had felt so unwelcoming yesterday now seemed almost ironic in light of what was about to happen. She glanced around the room, her eyes landing on the hairstylists and estheticians who were busy attending to their clients. A few of them glanced in her direction, clearly aware that something was different today. Within moments, Rachel appeared from the back of the salon, her posture exuding the same confidence and authority as before. But when her eyes met Monica's, something shifted. There was a brief flicker of recognition, but it was quickly masked by a professional smile as Rachel approached. "Good afternoon," Rachel said warmly, extending her hand. "I'm Rachel, the manager here. How can I help you today?" Monica looked down at Rachel's outstretched hand but didn't take it. Instead, she met Rachel's gaze with a calm, steady look. "We've already met, Rachel," Monica said, her voice measured. "Though I doubt you remember me from yesterday." Rachel's smile froze, and a confused expression crossed her face. "I'm sorry, You don't recognize me, do you?" Monica continued, her tone firm but not aggressive. "Yesterday I came into this salon wearing a hoodie and jeans. You looked me up and down and made it clear that I didn't belong here. You told me that your services were for a very specific clientele and suggested I go somewhere else." Rachel's face drained of color as the realization slowly dawned on her. Her hand dropped to her side, and she took a small step back, her professional facade beginning to crack. I didn't realize," Rachel stammered, her voice shaky. "If I had known—" "That's the point," Monica interrupted, her eyes never leaving Rachel's. "You shouldn't have to know who someone is to treat them with respect." The silence in the salon was deafening. Monica could feel the weight of the moment hanging between them, the tension thick in the air. Employees and clients alike were watching, their curiosity palpable as they tried to make sense of what was happening. Rachel swallowed hard, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape. I'm so sorry," she whispered, barely able to look Monica in the eye. "It was a mistake. I didn't mean to." Monica held up a hand, cutting her off. "It wasn't just a mistake, Rachel. It was a reflection of how you run this salon. You didn't just judge me based on my appearance. You judged every client who doesn't fit your narrow definition of worthy. And that's not the kind of culture I've worked so hard to build in this company." Rachel's eyes widened in shock. I didn't mean it that way. Please, let me explain." "There's nothing to explain," Monica said firmly. "Your actions spoke louder than any words ever could." The room was so quiet that Monica could hear the faint ticking of the salon's clock. Rachel stood frozen in place, her face a mask of humiliation and fear. The other staff members exchanged nervous glances, clearly unsure of what to do or say. Monica could see the unease in their eyes, the silent realization that this moment was much bigger than a simple confrontation between a manager and a dissatisfied client. Taking a step closer, Monica spoke again, her voice low but commanding. "You've allowed a toxic culture to develop in this salon, Rachel. A culture where clients are judged based on their appearance, their skin color, and their perceived wealth. That ends today." Rachel's lips trembled as she tried to form a response, but no words came out. The weight of her actions and their consequences was finally sinking in. "I've spent years building this company from the ground up," Monica continued, her eyes never leaving Rachel's. "I didn't create these salons to be exclusive clubs for the rich and privileged. I created them to be spaces where everyone feels welcome, where everyone is treated with respect and dignity, regardless of who they are or what they look like. That's the foundation of this brand. And you've betrayed it." A single tear slipped down Rachel's cheek as she realized just how deeply she had failed. "I'm sorry," Rachel whispered, her voice breaking. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone." Monica's gaze softened slightly, but her resolve remained firm. "It's not just about you, Rachel. It's about the culture you've allowed to thrive here. You had the power to make this salon a place of inclusivity and respect, but instead you chose to enforce exclusion and prejudice." Rachel wiped her tear away, nodding slowly, as if finally understanding the gravity of the situation. "I'm not just going to fire you, Rachel," Monica said, her tone final. "That would be too easy. You need to understand the impact of your actions, and you need to take responsibility for the culture you've created." Rachel looked up, her face pale. "What do you mean?" "You're going to stay here," Monica said, her eyes steady. "For the next month, you will personally greet every single client who walks through those doors. You will treat them all with the same respect and attention you would give your wealthiest customer. No judgments, no assumptions. And if I hear even one more complaint, you will be out of here, and I will make sure you never work in this industry again." The silence that followed was deafening. Rachel stood there, stunned, her face a mix of fear and disbelief. But there was also a flicker of something else in her eyes, perhaps the glimmer of hope that she might be able to redeem herself. I understand," Rachel stammered, her voice barely audible. "I'll do better, I swear." Monica nodded once, her gaze still firm. "Good. I'll be watching." With that, Monica turned and walked away, leaving Rachel standing in stunned silence. As she made her way toward the back of the salon, she felt the weight of the confrontation lift from her shoulders, though the burden of what had happened still lingered. Rebecca Hill, the regional manager, was waiting for her near the office. Rebecca had been with Monica since the early days of the company, and had always been a no-nonsense woman with a sharp eye for detail. She had witnessed the entire exchange from a distance, her arms crossed, and a small smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "Nice job," Rebecca said as Monica approached. "That was quite the statement." Monica sighed, shaking her head. "I didn't do it for satisfaction. It's just exhausting, you know? This isn't the first time I've dealt with this, and it won't be the last." Rebecca's expression softened as she nodded in understanding. "You're right, but what you did just now, it's a statement, not just to Rachel, but to the rest of the staff and to the customers. You're showing them that this kind of behavior won't be tolerated." Monica glanced around the salon, noticing how the other employees were still buzzing with nervous energy. She could feel their eyes on her, some curious, others anxious. She knew that this moment would ripple through the company, sending a clear message about what she stood for. "We need to do more," Monica said, her voice firm. "This can't just be a one-time thing. I want to implement a company-wide diversity and inclusion training program. Every manager, every staff member, everyone needs to be on the same page about how we treat people, regardless of their background." Rebecca smiled, her eyes gleaming with approval. "I've been waiting for you to say that. I'll start working on it immediately." Monica nodded, a small smile tugging at her lips. "And keep an eye on Rachel. If she slips up even once, I want her gone." Rebecca chuckled softly. "I don't think she's going to risk it after today." As the two women exchanged a knowing look, Monica allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. She had done what needed to be done, but it didn't erase the frustration that came with having to fight this battle over and over again. She had spent years proving herself in an industry that didn't expect her to succeed, only to find that no amount of success could fully shield her from the ugliness of prejudice. But today, she had taken another step toward changing that. And she wasn't done yet. As the afternoon sun streamed through the large windows of her office, Monica Williams sat at her desk, reviewing the new diversity and inclusion program that was about to roll out across all her salons. The document was thorough, outlining mandatory training sessions for all employees, from the top-level managers to the newest hires. It included everything from unconscious bias training to policies on customer interaction and equality in service. This was a turning point for her company, and Monica knew it wasn't just a necessary change. It was long overdue. But even with the satisfaction of setting things right, there was still the looming final act. The confrontation at the Soho salon had been a significant moment, but Monica understood that real change would only happen if the lesson reverberated across every one of her locations. Today, she was returning to that same salon, not to repeat the lesson, but to reinforce it, and to ensure that her employees understood that this wasn't just an isolated incident. This was the beginning of a cultural shift. She checked her watch, noting that it was almost time to leave. Today, there would be no entourage, no legal team standing by. Monica wanted to see for herself whether the message had truly sunk in. She stood up, adjusting the sleek, tailored navy blue suit that had become her signature look for moments like this. Confident, powerful, and fully in control. Lauren, her assistant, appeared at the door just as Monica finished gathering her things. "Your car is ready, Miss Williams," Lauren said, her tone professional, but carrying a hint of admiration. "Thank you, Lauren," Monica responded, her voice steady. "Let the office know that I'll be out for the rest of the afternoon. I'm heading to the Soho salon." Lauren nodded, but didn't need to ask for details. She knew what Monica was about to do. Everyone in the company did. News of the confrontation with Rachel had spread like wildfire, and the ripple effect was already being felt throughout the entire organization. The streets of Soho buzzed with life as Monica's car pulled up in front of the salon. She stepped out, her heels clicking against the pavement, and took a moment to survey the scene. From the outside, everything appeared as it always had, the glass windows showcasing luxury beauty products, the modern, elegant signage glowing softly in the afternoon light. But inside, Monica knew things were different. The atmosphere had shifted since her last visit, and today she was here to make sure that shift was permanent. She walked through the glass doors, immediately sensing the change. The cold, unwelcoming air that had greeted her before was gone, replaced by a warmth and attentiveness that felt almost foreign compared to her previous experience. The staff, dressed impeccably in their uniforms, stood ready, their eyes lighting up with recognition the moment Monica stepped inside. But unlike last time, there was no frantic rush to serve her, only because they knew who she was. This time, it felt genuine. The receptionist, a different one from the day before, greeted her with a warm smile. "Good afternoon, Miss Williams. Welcome back to our salon. How can we assist you today?" Monica returned the smile, though she felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing that the staff didn't need to be reminded of her status to treat her with the respect that every client deserved. "I'm just here to check on things," she said casually. her eyes sweeping the salon to see how the team interacted with their current clients. As she moved through the space, Monica noticed how the staff seemed to be working with a renewed sense of purpose. Hairstylists and estheticians greeted clients warmly, offering the kind of service that reflected the values she had always envisioned for her brand. It wasn't just about luxury. It was about creating a space where everyone, regardless of their background, felt valued. It didn't take long for her to spot Rachel. The once overconfident manager stood at the front of the salon, personally greeting clients as they entered. Gone was the haughty, dismissive attitude that had so clearly been present during their last encounter. Instead, Rachel appeared humbled, her demeanor subdued but professional. When their eyes met, Rachel's face flushed slightly. But to her credit, she didn't shrink away. She nodded respectfully, a silent acknowledgement of the lesson she had learned. Monica took a slow breath, feeling the weight of the past few days lift from her shoulders. She hadn't been sure how Rachel would respond to the consequences of her actions, but seeing the woman now, it was clear that the lesson had hit home. Rachel had stayed, as Monica had demanded, and was making an effort to change. Monica approached Rachel, who quickly finished speaking to a client before turning her full attention to her boss. "Miss Williams," Rachel said quietly, her voice steady, though lacking its previous confidence. "It's good to see you again." Monica studied her for a moment before speaking. "Rachel," she began, her tone firm but not unkind. "How have things been going here since our last conversation?" Rachel took a deep breath, her hands clasped in front of her. "Things have been different. We've implemented some changes in how we handle client interactions, and I've made sure that every member of my team understands the importance of treating every client with the respect they deserve." Monica nodded, but she wasn't interested in vague platitudes. "That's good to hear, but I'm not just asking about procedures. I want to know what you've learned, Rachel." Rachel's eyes dropped for a moment, and Monica could see the internal struggle play out across her face. Finally, Rachel looked up, meeting Monica's gaze directly. "I learned that I had allowed my own biases to affect how I treated people," Rachel admitted, her voice low but clear. "I judged you based on your appearance, and I made assumptions about who you were without taking the time to actually see you as a person. I know now that I can't allow those kinds of judgments to dictate how I interact with clients. It's not just bad for business. It's wrong." Monica appreciated the honesty, but she wasn't one to let things slide so easily. "And what about your team?" she asked. "Have they learned the same lesson?" Rachel nodded again, this time with more conviction. "Yes, they have. We've had multiple conversations about what happened, and I've made sure that everyone understands the standards we need to uphold. It's not just about avoiding mistakes. It's about actively creating a culture of respect and inclusivity." Monica watched her closely, searching for any hint of insincerity, but Rachel's words seemed genuine. She had made a mistake, a significant one, but she was trying to correct it. "I'm glad to hear that," Monica said after a long pause. "But understand this, Rachel. 1 month of good behavior isn't enough. This has to be the new normal. I will not tolerate any more incidents like the one that happened here. You and your team are responsible for making sure that this salon reflects the values of my company every single day. Is that clear?" Rachel swallowed hard, but nodded. "Yes, Miss Williams. I understand." Monica allowed herself a small nod of approval. "Good, then keep doing the work. I'll be watching." With that, she turned and made her way toward the exit, her heels clicking against the marble floor. But just before she reached the door, she paused, glancing back over her shoulder at Rachel. "And Rachel?" she called. Rachel turned quickly, her face tense with anticipation. "If I hear about any more issues like this, you won't just be out of a job here. You won't work in this industry again, understand?" Rachel's face paled, but she nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "I understand." Monica nodded once more, and then pushed through the glass doors, stepping out into the cool afternoon air. Over the next few weeks, the ripple effects of Monica's confrontation with Rachel continued to spread throughout the company. Word of what had happened at the Soho salon had reached every corner of the business, and employees were now hyper-aware of how they treated clients. The diversity and inclusion training Monica had implemented was already starting to bear fruit. Employees who had once been hesitant to speak up about issues of discrimination were now coming forward, sharing their experiences and offering suggestions on how the company could do better. It wasn't easy. Change never was. There were difficult conversations, uncomfortable moments, and resistance from some quarters. But Monica remained firm in her commitment to creating a company culture that truly reflected her values. She personally attended some of the training sessions, making sure that her managers understood that this wasn't just a corporate checkbox. This was a real effort to build a more inclusive and respectful environment for both employees and clients. As the weeks went by, Monica began to see the changes in action. Clients who had once felt marginalized or ignored were now being treated with the same level of care and attention as the wealthiest, most high-profile customers. Employees were more engaged, more thoughtful about their interactions, and more willing to call out behavior that didn't align with the company's new standards. And as for Rachel, she continued to work at the Soho salon, though her demeanor had changed significantly. She no longer carried the same air of superiority that had once defined her leadership style. Instead, she seemed more humble, more focused on listening to her clients and her team. Monica kept a close eye on her, but so far there had been no further incidents. It seemed that Rachel had learned her lesson and, more importantly, was committed to ensuring that her team learned it as well. One afternoon, about a month after the initial confrontation, Monica decided to return to the Soho salon for an unannounced visit. She dressed casually again, jeans and a t-shirt. Nothing fancy. This time, she wasn't going undercover. She simply wanted to see if the changes she had implemented were truly taking root. When she stepped through the doors, she was immediately greeted by the same receptionist as before. But this time, there was no forced enthusiasm, no frantic attempts to please her because of her status. The greeting was warm, genuine, and professional. "Good afternoon, Miss Williams," the receptionist said with a smile. "It's great to see you again. How can we assist you today?" Monica smiled back. "Just browsing, thank you." She wandered through the salon, observing the interactions between the staff and clients. Everything seemed to be running smoothly, and Monica felt a sense of pride in knowing that her efforts were making a difference. As she made her way to the watch section, she noticed Rachel standing nearby, talking quietly with a client. When Rachel spotted her, their eyes met, and for a brief moment, Monica saw a flicker of anxiety in Rachel's expression. But then, Rachel nodded respectfully, her demeanor calm and professional. Monica returned the nod, her eyes conveying a silent message. "You're doing well. Keep it up." She continued browsing for a few more minutes before deciding to leave. As she stepped out onto the bustling streets of Soho, a sense of peace washed over her. The changes were real, and while there was always more work to be done, she had taken a significant step toward ensuring that her salons were a place of inclusivity and respect. She had built her empire to be a beacon of luxury and quality, but now it was also a beacon of something even more important: dignity for all. Monica took a deep breath, the cool air filling her lungs as she looked out over the city. There would always be more battles to fight, more injustices to confront. But today, she had won a small but significant victory, and she knew that was just the beginning. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss new episodes. Click on the bell to be the first to know about our latest videos. In the meantime, check out the following stories that are sure to move you. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.